ghost hunt at Hagood Mill in Pickens, South Carolina, June 14, 2025. Tickets are $25 and are sold on Eventbrite and in person at the Dark, Strange and Mysterious Market in Easley, SC on June 13th and 14th. Special guests for the ghost hunt is Brandon Cooper and Blaine Rohan. Hagood Mill is known for its rich history and mysterious activity. Can you see spirits? Can ghosts talk to you? Find out. Ghost Hunt, June 14, 2025. Tickets cost $25. We will gather at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and do a history haunting tour until midnight.
Hey. Welcome, everybody. It's Bridging the Seen and Unseen. I am your host, Shane McLain, and this is Gwen, the producer. Hello, Miss Gwen.
How are you?
I'm good. Like I said, no complaints here. And my wife's sitting here, so if I do, I'm in trouble anyway.
No, she's so sweet.
She is, but she lets y'all see that side, but then there's another side there that but y'all don't see.
Your podcast.
So and see what she just said? She just threatened me and she goes, your podcast can't save you. So see, that's what I'm talking about. See, there's a side that y'all don't know. So,
yeah, she's still sweet.
Yeah, she is. I'm pretty excited about tonight, because we've had so many different guests on this show, from archbishops, to paranormal teams, to builders and things like that. But the one that I have not had yet is talking about cryptids. And I think it is important that people in the paranormal community learn about stuff like that, because it's just as real as any entity in the paranormal field as it is. So I'm excited about this. We have Cryptid Paranormal, and his name is Brian Godhard. Let's bring him on.
Hi, how you doing?
Hey, how are you, brother?
Well, thank you. Good to be here.
Glad to have you. Like I said, if you heard in the beginning, I've had numerous guests on, from archbishops to ministers to paranormal teams to builders and people from Paraflix and stuff like. I've had a lot of people on, but the one I have not had on yet is one with cryptid, and I couldn't think of someone better to try to not only promote in your page but to learn more about cryptid. So Cryptid Paranormal, we're glad to have you, and we look forward to having this conversation with you.
Excellent. Thank you. I look forward to it.
So why don't you start out by telling us and everybody who you are and what you're about?
I am a cryptid and paranormal investigator based out of Cleveland, Ohio. I research and search for cryptids. I investigate haunted locations. I research UAPs, different things like pretty much all on that line. And then I kind of look at what brings it together. Is it all connected? Are these all separate entities? I interview witnesses, talk to other investigators, go to different conferences, meet with people, just get different perspectives, interview. I guess sometimes other investigators are also witnesses. So then we'll compare stories, notes, just different things that we've all seen and kind of looking for, are there patterns? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. And, we kind of explore. Everyone has their own different take on cryptids, for example. My personal belief is that they are biological beings, just like we are. That is not the case across the board. Yes.
Okay.
So cryptid is a word that was a crypto in Greece, and it got turned into cryptid and then cryptozoology in English. It means hidden.
Means what?
And it means hidden.
Yeah. Obviously, yeah. Like the whole Bigfoot thing and everything, they like to try to hide from you. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. So, and then Bigfoot's not the only one. There's a lot of dogman sightings in the U.S. Of course, there's chupacabra sightings. Sometimes you have giant birds, thunderbird sightings. There's different things like that, and there's all sorts of things in between too that sometimes people have seen.
Mothman.
Yeah, Mothman is definitely a big one right here. Actually, not too far from us here in Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
And there's the Minerva monster in Ohio, which is also known as the grassland monster, which is not just another name for Bigfoot. And there, if you go, when you start researching Bigfoot, you learn across the country that there's about 30 to 40 different names just in the U.S. alone of different sightings, depending on when it happened, where it was, things like that. Whoever coined the term, whoever reported it first in the newspaper. There is the Yowie in Australia. There is the orang pendek in Indonesia. And there's even in the UK, they have basically Bigfoot similar to us, things like that. So it's not just an isolated incident of North America. It is a worldwide phenomenon going back several hundred years. And it's not just Bigfoot either. Dogmen can be back all the way to ancient Egypt.
Yeah, that's so interesting, because you were talking about patterns and stuff like I'm in the low country of South Carolina. I'm down here, we're below sea level here. I'm from the Sea Islands, Hilton Head, Beaufort, the Sea Islands that are all around here, and we have around here, we have an urban legend on a kind of like a reptile man, and and people have clearly seen this thing because this thing walks on two legs. It's not that big of a creature, but it has wreaked fear in people, but it's mainly in the swampy areas and stuff like that. And around here, you just don't go walking into the swampy areas. So, I mean, if you do end up catching it, it's because you are in those areas, like maybe in a canoe or something like that. And that's the stories that I've heard. Is like they'll see it running across the bank or something like that. And it can dip down and it can move just like a reptile. But I'm not 100% familiar with it. But you said something interesting, Ryan. You said that you look for patterns, and I do agree with you that every place has their own, whether it be the UK or anything. But these patterns that you're referring to, are they actually the same creature, just named something different in the area that it is?
That's one possibility. Some of us believe that. I'm on the other side of the aisle. I have a suspicion that as just like people, as we spread out through the world, there we underwent certain genetic changes. Some of us are taller, we look different, our skin tones are different, we have different facial characteristics, things like that. I would imagine any kind of cryptid origin went through the same evolutionary process we did, and
Right.
at some point split off. So when you're seeing, Sasquatch or Bigfoot being probably the best known cryptid, the descriptions all over the world are very similar. They're not
Yeah.
necessarily identical. In Indonesia,
But they have the same DNA pattern.
It's possible. We haven't gotten a sample of DNA from any of them yet that's been confirmed from them. There's been different DNA samples that have come up over the years and have come back as inconclusive or contaminated. So there's no, as to date, there's no DNA from a cryptid to compare it to anything else. And that's really the big piece that we're missing with Bigfoot is there's a lot of documentation, there's footprints, there's a lot of witness statements, certainly, but there is no DNA to test and say, okay, this is not a person, nor is it some kind of escaped gorilla from somewhere either. This is something, a little bit of both, but it's also something different that we haven't seen.
Haven't they got some with some of the hair and things of that nature? Because like they haven't, there's some, speaking of the Bigfoot and stuff like that the hair hasn't been any kind of hair that has been noticeable on any other animal. So, I mean, could that be possible in like possibly a start at finding a DNA tracing on some of these creatures?
Yeah, I mean, if we could get it, what would be essentially someone would need to see it and perhaps have a picture of where the sample's coming from to really prove it beyond a doubt. There would need to be a chain of evidence, so to speak. There's different hair that has been found. It's been tested in labs. Sometimes it's turned up to be something else entirely. Sometimes, as I mentioned, it has turned up to be inconclusive. They're not saying it's a Bigfoot. They're just simply saying they can't figure out what it is, but they're not ruling out the possibility that it's not from something that could be identified if they knew where the sample came from, as opposed to just finding it in the woods. And there's been samples that have been found where strands of hair have been mixed together. It'll be a bear and some other kind of animal's hair had gotten mixed together.
Oh, got intertwined inside of each other. Yeah.
So that happens. Yeah. So that happens, sometimes too. So have we found a Bigfoot hair? Possibly. But it has been inconclusive, and there's nothing to compare it to. We don't have a sample of this we're 100% sure this came off a creature we can't identify. This is a hair we found over here. The DNA strands match. Now we have two samples for something, and at least one has not been identified by the witness. And based on any photographic or video information, we can't determine that it's a known species. That's kind of the smoking gun we need to get the scientist on board. And I think once that happens, and it's just a matter of time as technology gets better, then we'll be able to get the research and attention it deserves in the scientific community at the professional level.
And they're so elusive. I heard like somebody tell me they were like, if they've existed this long, how come there's never been like a skeletal remain of one or anything of that? And the scientist was like, well, tell me the last time that you saw the skeletal remains of an ape.
Yep.
You really don't see them. So I mean, I don't think that was a good way to start that conversation off, but it has intrigued so many people, me as well. I used to camp in North Carolina, up in Boone, and between in there in North Carolina, I used to hear stories about the dog man, the wolf man, Bigfoot, things like that. And I used to think there was this crazy old man that used to go out there, and he had this thing, and he go, oh, oh, and he was doing this all through the woods right there, looking for a response. And us as kids, we were looking at him like, there is something definitely wrong with that guy. And he's probably sitting there thinking like, oh, I'm doing scientific work. And we're like, man, you need to just scientifically put yourself in a home. But hey, I like stuff like that. So how long have you been studying in cryptids and stuff like that? And what got you into it?
I've always been interested in everything cryptid, paranormal, supernatural, extraterrestrial, you name it, I'm interested. Growing up watching Unsolved Mysteries, if you remember the show Sightings in the early 90s.
Oh, yeah. I'm 47 years old, man. I grew up in that era.
Yeah, me too. I'm 42.
Yeah,
so
see?
all sorts of great, sources and things to really pique the curiosity.
Yeah.
And later, when I was 16, we live in the Cleveland area. It was what I did when I was a kid. And my parents own 11 and a half acres in Pennsylvania, and we used to camp out there periodically on the weekends and whatnot. They had a little trailer out there that we would stay in. And my best friend PJ and I, and we're still best friends till this day, but we were playing paintball at night. Seemed like a good idea at the time. We were up there all weekend. Paintball, cheap paintball, Walmart guns. Nothing too powerful, just little CO2 cartridges.
Yeah,
we've been shooting at each other all weekend, and decided it was too easy during the day, so we should challenge ourselves. So we waited till about 10, 11 o'clock, and then we went out and agreed we were going to walk in different directions and then start taking shots at each other. And at one point, I think we taped laser pointers to them to try to, help find, aim at each other and kind of help out identify where to launch at. And, we were out there for a little while, and I had thought I had going back around him. And I was kind of biding my time, and I thought I saw him. So I slowly took my time, moved closer. He wasn't facing me. So, I had this big, shit-eating grin on my face, like I'm going to get away with something. And I was going in for the best possible shot. And I started shooting, and he didn't react. I'm like, man, maybe I'm missing him. So I got a little closer and started shooting again. Like, I know I'm hitting him. And then all of a sudden, this thing in front of me starts standing up. So, I am 6'8" tall. I was this tall at 16.
You're what?
I am 6'8".
God,
well, this is important, a detail, because I was this tall at 16, and when this thing stood up, it had me by 2 or 3 feet easy. It was massive. And
no wonder, man. You're tall enough right there. You're big enough. You could probably wrestle one of them things.
I wouldn't try it. When they launch boulders, they could launch me just as easy.
Oh, man, I know.
But yeah, just as that was the basis of comparison, it was significantly taller than me.
Wow.
Easily, in my opinion, 2 or 3 feet. And I froze at first because I'm watching this thing stand up. I'm like, the hell is this? And then my flight or fight kicked in, and I've never run as fast in my life before or since. I was coming down one trail. My friend PJ, as it turns out, was on the other side of the woods shooting at the same thing. He thought it was me. And when it was standing up, he came to the same conclusion that it wasn't me, and it was huge. And I got to the trail head, and I turned around. He was coming up and almost ran me over on another trail, just completely plowed me down. And the two of us stood there and looked at each other like, what the hell? And I was like, did you see? And he like, it's huge. And we looked over, and there was something in the woods looking at us. It had walked. It kind of stopped. We stood there for a second, froze, frankly. And it looked like it turned around. And it was moving fast, but it was walking. We didn't stick around to find out where it was heading to. We ran as fast as humanly possible. It got back inside and locked the door. And then we sat there for the next 5 or 6 hours, pretty much all night, trying to figure out what the hell just happened. And we went through all sorts of scenarios. Well, could it be a bear? Well, no, there's not really black bears in this part of the country, or at least, Ohio, Pennsylvania. That part of Pennsylvania is it's the first exit into Pennsylvania overall. Past Ohio, we don't have bears in this area. But even if it was a black bear, it's not going to be taller than I am, more than likely.
Right. That's what I was about to say.
Bear might, but yeah, so, and it walked, bipedal. A bear can stand up on 2 legs for maybe 2 or 3, 4 steps, but eventually it's fallen down. And when it moved towards us, it didn't fall down. It was standing up tall. And the only way it could move, and it wasn't running. Like the shoulders were kind of still. You could tell it wasn't running. But I think the steps were just so massive. It just came in so quick. And we turned around and ran. And that was the other thing. If it was some kind of an animal, we both agreed that it would not have stopped pursuing us. If it was a bear and we were shooting paintballs at it, it probably would have attacked one or both of us. Certainly would have thought we were an easy meal the way we froze.
It didn't respond to you, though?
No, it didn't care at all, I don't think. To me, it was kind of like it was swatting a flea, or not a flea, like a fly or something away.
Oh, wow.
And I suspect, because these weren't powerful paintball guns, so it probably, from the distance and all, as much hair as these things have, and depending on if you go along the lines of the theory that it's some kind of a primate, gorillas have very thick skin. It stands to reason something like this would have thick skin in addition to a very thick hair. So the paintballs might not have been really bothering it that much. But it could have, if it was walking that fast and it wanted to run and catch us, it could have done so. It could have charged me. It could have charged PJ at any point during the encounter, but it chose not to. And a wild animal, I don't believe, would do that. I think it would have gone after one of us. It didn't make a noise either. I think an animal would have growled, a bear would have done something. And, it stopped at a certain point, almost like it saw that we were terrified and realized we weren't a threat, so it didn't need to pursue us, which to me, again, leads to a higher level of thinking than necessarily what animal would have. And the next day, well after the sun came up, we slowly creeped around there. We looked out the back window first, and then we kind of creeped around and looked from a distance and slowly worked the nerve up to go back there. And we walked around and we saw where the paintballs were, the ones that we had missed and hit trees. But it's hard to say for sure because we were shooting each other for 2 days. But I still, to this day, could probably tell you the exact same spot where it was. And when we looked around the next day, there was nothing conclusive. We didn't find any footprints or anything like that, although what I would look for now versus then would be very different. We just kind of went around and just, did one of these, looked around. I didn't really think about a look at the ground at the time to see if there was footprints in there. We didn't think to look for hair or anything like that. We were just like, what the hell is
wanting
going
to
on?
find out what it was. Yeah, really.
Yeah, we came to 2 conclusions. There's either a 10-foot man in a gorilla suit walking around on private property, or it was a Bigfoot. And, my parents are on 11.5 acres. The adjoining property is 10. The one next to that is several hundred. It's all farmland. So, and there's a farm on the other side of the street too that's several hundred acres. So there are not many people around to begin with. It's very rural even till this day. It's never been built up. So, and it's unusual to see someone taller than me. I've never seen someone that tall.
That's what I'm saying. Like, and not only, you're 6'8", man. So, if this thing's like 10, 11, 12 feet like that, have around that area, have there in any other sightings by other people that have seen the same thing?
Yes, this took place in the late 90s. And over the years, I've gone back and looked, and I found on different websites, and there's different stories, and I put some stuff out on Facebook from time to time, and people have said, yeah, I used to see him back in 95, 96, 97. And the Ashtabula County, the Ohio side of the highway, essentially, has only just become really developed in the last 10 years or so, maybe. So in the 90s, it was all woods, just like the Pennsylvania side, and the Ohio River runs through there. A lot of these properties, these farms have massive ponds. It's thick woods, lots of bodies of water. Nobody really lived there, so it was a perfect place for them to be without human interference.
They got a
It's
water source, they got hunting, they got all kind of things like that. So I mean, of course, they, the essentials for survival. And I mean, if they're a primate like that, so obviously, shelter, food, water, I mean, they've got it. They've got it. And if they've lasted this long, and brother, I've read things about Bigfoot and Wowies and abominable snowmen and stuff like that since I was a kid. And then my grandparents were born in the early 1900s, and they have heard some of the same things even back. So I mean, is there a life expectancy? Like, do we have any idea? Like, I mean, can they live like hundreds and hundreds of years? Or, I mean, do we know? Do we have an idea?
We don't. And there's two different theories on that as well. So, some people have seen smaller ones, some people have seen larger ones. So we believe that they reproduce. We believe some of the shorter ones are either children or female. So myself on the biological side, I think they reproduce. They probably have a similar life expectancy to us, I would imagine, give or take. That said, there's the other side, which does not necessarily believe they are biological. Some people believe they are a spiritual nature or more of a
How can that be, though? How can that be? How can it be in a spiritual nature like that? Well, I mean, if they're a primate and things of like that, so obviously, they're not like they're not like a paranormal, where you have to go in and like see if something's there. I guess so. Like Indian tribes and stuff like that, they probably have their stories and stuff like that for years and years too.
Yes, a lot of the Native American tribes here in the States, almost all of them have some kind of story of at what that time would have been referred to as a hairy man or a wild man, this hairy human-like creature, but also has ape-like features that lived in the woods. Same with the First Nations people in Canada, Vancouver, British Columbia, that area up there. And in Canada, some of the First Nations people, they believe it is like a guardian, a spirit guardian of the forest. And that at one point in time, their ancestors lived in harmony with them. And basically, it goes to when the Europeans came and we started retrofitting the area to meet our needs instead of living in the environment, that the Sasquatches did not like that. And they didn't believe in it. And they thought that we were destroying basically their habitat. So they moved on, essentially. They're in their belief system that there are portals and there's ways that they can come and go from this world and some other place.
So they live in a different dimension.
That is one school of thought. Some say it's supernatural. Some say it is not, that these are somehow, whether they're natural portals or the Bigfoots are somehow creating them or something else is creating them. But either way, they're using them. That's one side of it. On my side, on the biological side of it, I lean more towards underground cave systems, things like that. I have a suspicion that's more likely. There are caves all over the United States, all over North America. Even right here in Ohio, we have caves. There are caves. Washington State is a high area. There's plenty of lava caves and things like that up there. Alaska's a high sighting area. There's a lot of caves. Any kind of mountains where you'd see caves, canyons, sightings like that, areas, the sightings are higher. So there does seem to be a correlation between cave systems and where they're located. Now, it's possible they are aware of cave systems we simply are not. There might be, they may have a way to get to them that we don't have. I suspect they have, I don't want to call it a sixth sense, but some kind of instinct that tells them when there's danger. And we know from research on gorillas that in Africa, when they were chasing down some of the gorillas after they got discovered, that they seem to know when people are around. As technologies evolved, they've used trail cameras. The silverback gorillas have been known to see the trail cameras. They can go through the woods and they will stop.
They know where they are.
They do, and they'll beat their chest and they'll growl at it essentially.
A threat. Yeah.
But how do they know it's there?
Right.
How do they know that it doesn't? They know it doesn't belong by looking at it, but how do they know it's high up in a tree? These cameras have a great distance. You don't have to have them right on them. Mm-hmm. So somehow they know it's there. And if that's the case with the gorilla, it's very possible a Bigfoot or any of those other cryptids, depending on where they come from and what they actually are, has a similar instinct, and they're able to tell when there's a camera, when someone's looking for them.
Yeah.
Whether it's we don't know. Is there some kind of electrical signature coming from the technology that they can sense? Do they have some such like heightened survival sense that we simply don't have or have lost because we don't need it anymore?
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, to them, we probably are a threat.
And guns too, So, I mean, that of course, why would they trust us? Why would they trust us that they can come out, bring their kids out, like kind of show like there's no reason for them to trust us, especially with us with firearms and, us being the superior species, because we have the capabilities of killing things and stuff like that. I'm pretty sure I would try to keep my family away from it if I was like that too.
Well, that, and if you go back to Native American and First Nations oral history and folklore, some of them are spiritual, some of them are more biological, and they lived separate. They stayed in their territory, we stayed out of their way. Others, oral history and folklore, at one point that the tribes lived with their tribes and they shared resources, and the story is always the same. At some point they did not like what we were doing. So depending on how intelligent these things are, that may be the case. This could very well be a simple matter of they don't believe in our way of life. And over the centuries, we've outpopulated them too. That's one thing since we don't know enough about their biology, we don't know what their reproduction capabilities are. We don't know how many, if they're anywhere like humans, it's a 9-month, year kind of thing. So
right.
But that's assuming they are like us. We don't know for sure how their process works, how long it takes. Can they have we can have twins, we can have multiple people, we can get pregnant all the time. That's not necessarily the case for every species. So we don't know enough yet about their biological systems to make these judgments on what actually happened. The native populations, at least in North America, there seemed like there was some interaction at some point. And the interesting thing is not that they talk about it, but there's cave paintings, there's old drawings. And there's totem poles that have a head of a Sasquatch on here. And people will say, well, they probably saw it somewhere. But wait, allegedly there are no primates in North America. So how is something 500-600 years old a perfect depiction of a primate if these people could never have seen one since they don't exist in North America? So they saw something, and it's not just one. There's tribes all over the country that have cave paintings,
right? Brian,
are all the same.
Yeah, and that's fascinating. Brian, I'm gonna interrupt you for a second. Gwen, let's say hello to everybody that's watching, Gwen. And I know that people are popping up some questions here.
Yeah, we got Susan, Victoria. Hey, Susan.
Hey,
Aaron.
Susan. Hey, Aaron.
Victor Santiago, Pat
Hey.
Patterson.
Hey, Pat.
We got Resnick. We've got more who are not typing in, but that's always. We've got somebody else. Give me 1 second. Lee. Hey, Lee.
Hey, Lee.
Mort.
Hey, Mort.
Mort too. So let's see. Let's see. What are they saying?
I know Victor said something and Aaron did too.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking back at that. Okay. Victor said that's why he wants to go investigate. I've heard him talk about it on something. I can't remember. Maybe people are looking in the wrong directions, that kind of thing. And then I know Aaron was saying they have cloaking too, interested because they can see us with, watching them type of thing.
That's interesting. That's interesting that you use Aaron. Aaron is my team director for Outer Realms Paranormal. He's a great guy. He's an elementalist. So this conversation could be right up his alley about learning about all this stuff here. So this is perfect. That's interesting, Aaron, that you put cloaking, because when I think of cloaking like that, I'm thinking of like X-Men, they put the cloak and all of a sudden they disappear and things like that. Is that more on the supernatural side? Like maybe they have something where they could just make themselves disappear?
So there's two schools of thought on that as well. There's the supernatural and then there's the biological. So the supernatural, and they both have merit. One of the most common things that we see with sightings in tracks is all of a sudden the tracks they just stop. They're gone. There's a few tracks and then they disappear. We don't know why that is. It happens in snow. It happens in the ground everywhere. And people also see them 1 minute and then blink and they're gone. Now, the spiritual side of it, that they're essentially some kind of forest guardian or something along those lines. They simply either go through a portal or they vanish, however it is they travel between here and wherever there is. However, if you look at the biological side, take owls, for example. Owls can land on a tree and blend in. They can change to the color of that tree.
Right.
Animals can do that. So
kind of chameleon kind of.
Right. It's possible, depending on where they actually come from, whether it's us, apes, or something completely different. A lot of people assume that they're the missing link. I'm not necessarily sure that's the case. They may not have necessarily anything in common with us. It just may be an uncanny resemblance of evolution, or they're just simply a different kind of primate than we are. An advanced one, but not, just different. So we don't really know what they could do, but it's reasonable to believe that they may have, based on how they disappear and during sightings, that they could perhaps blend in, that they could turn a certain color, or, human vision is actually very limited. If you look at what we can actually see, another possibility is that they're able to change their color, and it's something that we can't process visually.
Hey, Resnick is saying there are reports of cloaking and mind speak, and he believes that it's possible that they use more of their brains than humans.
That's interesting too.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people have been reporting. Yeah, a lot of people have been reporting that they can communicate telepathically.
Oh, they don't. Oh, okay. All right.
That is not the experience of all. That is the experience of some. I have mixed feelings on it personally, because they are known to make howling signs, howling noises. They whistle. They can mimic other animals sometimes. Some cultures believe that they can even mimic people. One of the more prominent theories is wood knocking or tree knocking, where they're hitting a branch against a tree a certain number of times, and that's how they're communicating some for longer distance communicating. And people will try that. They'll try to go out.
Kind of like a Morse code, but for
something, probably same concept, but in whatever their language might be.
Right.
And there's a lot of recordings in areas where there's sightings of that kind of a sound. And that's been what you replicate when you smash a large branch against a tree. And people have had success doing that and getting a response. What is responding is the question. We can't prove indefinitely that it's a Sasquatch. It could be somebody playing a joke on somebody else. It really could be a Squatch. However, a lot of sightings have that sound, and a lot of people, when they look for them in the areas where there's high sightings, they record that sound. When recorders are left out in the field for a while, that's one of the sounds we seem to constantly find.
Right,
So it
right.
does seem possible that that's how they're communicating at least long distance. Now, if they are telepathic, perhaps there's a range limit on it. I don't know. When PJ and I encountered that thing, I don't think it was trying to talk to us or communicate in any way. Although we were scared out of our minds. So if it was, maybe we didn't notice. You know, fear is a pretty motivating factor.
It is. It is.
You know, so, but again, not
You
everyone has
guys-
had that experience.
Aaron says he truly thinks they're professional chameleons. Let me speak right. Susan Victoria is like, Brian, do you believe there are possible portals, like interdimensional portals?
I think it's a possibility. It's hard to
That's
ignore.
on the supernatural side there. So of course, I mean, like for them to be able to travel from this to that, you know, they would have to be, but they would obviously have to be in an area to where, you know, I mean, is it like a portal, like a paranormal portal, you know, like where things can come in and out, or, you know, what's your thoughts about that, about the portal like that?
So, to me, the supernatural, it certainly exists, but I don't think it's magic. I think it's science we don't understand yet. It's possible, in my opinion, that there are some kind of natural ways to access portals out there that either the human race has forgotten or never knew to begin with.
Right.
It would explain how they disappear so fast, how they appear 1 second and gone the next. There are stories of flashes of light. There has been radiation detected around areas where there have sightings have been, and then they're vanished the next minute. That evidence could be a portal, and certainly in the spiritual side, crossing from one world to the next, the portal is perfectly reasonable to go through. It's the number of people that have seen something, how they disappear so quickly, it's hard not to rule it out. I don't think it's a spiritual. I think there's a explanation. We just probably can't figure it out yet. I don't think we have the technology to detect what it is. But that doesn't necessarily mean they're traveling using a supernatural ability. I think they may know of something that's exists that we don't. Or there's, of course, the third, a little bit out there possibility that you hear sometimes is that they are using someone else's transit system, essentially. That there is
Wait a second. They're using someone else's transit system?
There's theories on the outskirts that there's an extraterrestrial element that they have.
Oh, I was about to say they're like hitchhiking on the side of like Utah's roads or something.
Pretty much, yeah. So a lot of high area sightings of Sasquatch or other cryptids also have a lot of UFO sightings. Often they seem to time up. It's an uncanny coincidence if it's just a coincidence. It's very often. So there is a belief that someone has interfered, or someone is helping them, or something, or there's something left over that they're aware of and we're not. I don't know. I've never seen a UFO. Would love to. I've read a lot about them, but I've never had my own experience with one. I've never seen one disappear like a Sasquatch. I would love to see one go through a portal or simply vanish.
My father and I, clear as day. We are some of those people where, like, in the paranormal, I debunk everything obvious first. So if I don't see it, I just don't see it. But I was a kid. He was a grown man. We were out at the mailbox and we both saw it clear as day right over the tree line. It was a triangle looking thing. It had the lights on it like this, and it just stood there. And then all of a sudden it turned like this. There was no sound at all. No sound. And that thing zipped across I mean, faster than anything. It looked like it went as like the sound of light, and we couldn't believe what we saw. And then my dad and I were like, "No one's ever going to believe that we saw that," and we know what we saw. And so I'm very curious about that, you know, and I've always wanted to know, life, outside of this system right here, if there was something else there. So I know what we saw. I know. And if that was a military doing, back in the late 80s, early 90s, then that technology was so advanced that it can move with no sound and be faster than sound and light. So I don't know.
I personally think it's very possible they're out there. I would certainly love to see one. I don't disagree that it could be interconnected. I'm not convinced that the ghost, shadow beings, things like that aren't necessarily all interconnected either. It is very possible. There's some theories that there are thin areas, if you will, or light areas that there's a weakness between our reality and somewhere else. And perhaps that's where these things actually come from, is somewhere else, and they're just passing through, and we're the transit system. That
like
goes
another
through
dimension.
aliens, Sasquatch, ghosts, shadow people. And that's certainly a possibility. I don't know.
Well, then let me ask you this. Since you said that, let me ask you this. Then what are your thoughts on demons?
I don't know. I've had a parallel. I've had encounters with ghosts. I've never seen a demon.
Well, see, the thing is, I'm in spiritual warfare exorcism ministry, and I have seen the manifestation of a demonic presence, and I've had seen oppression and things like that affect people to a great extent. But to try to compare something in paranormal to something demonic, there is a vast difference there. Like, you are more likely in the paranormal sense to run in and seeing a residual haunting than you are seeing something demonic. And out of all the cases I've ever worked in, I work residential cases. Out of all the cases I've ever worked, the stat of you having a true demonic encounter, which they are real, is 1%. So you're not going to experience, but the ones that do, the 1% that does, there's ways that you can tell a demonic infestation to oppression, from oppression to possession, from possession. There's a process that it goes through, and demons are horrible, man. If you believe in God, and you know that Jesus Christ is your personal Lord and Savior, you have to know that there's evil. You have to know that there's demons. Where there's good, there's evil. And demons are 100% evil. They're not going to come in some paranormal thing to move coffee cups across the table and then have you say, well, I got a demon in my house. You move my coffee cup. Doesn't work like that. A demon is trying to destroy God's creation, which we are God's creation. We are his ultimate creation. It says that he made man in his image and in his likeness. So what's the best way for a demon to destroy God's creation is from the inside out. So when it starts taking over, it manifests itself. There's an infestation, there's an oppression, and there's a possession. And it's a scary, scary thing, man. It's scary. You know, this is not like a regular paranormal investigation. You know, when you go in and, you know, someone, you hear 5, 6, 7 different voices coming out of someone, and they're speaking different languages that they've never spoke before, and they have incredible superhuman kind of like strength. They're able to levitate and things of that nature. That is a demonic presence, you know. So I mean, and you said you never seen one. I'm glad you've never seen one, because that definitely makes our jobs, what we do, a lot easier, because we would rather go in and explain a paranormal circumstance than we would to tell one of our clients that there is a demonic infestation in their house, because the time that it's going to go from infestation to oppression is so quick, and you are going to see some radical changes in that person that is going to be so scary and so sudden that it's going to completely change that person from the inside out. And that demon is there to possess you, to take over your body, to manifest itself to everything, and to just destroy everything that you are. So I'm glad you haven't seen it. I'm sorry to go on that, but I had to put it in there because you were talking about the differences, how they could all be linked in. I have to kindly disagree, you know, with the demonic side of it, because I don't think that you can put a relative explanation of a demon being closer to anything except for a demon.
I don't necessarily disagree. I think that's very likely demons are out there, evil presences. There's certainly evil people in the world. So whether demons are a separate entity, that's certainly very possible. They come from a completely different place.
Yeah.
You know, if, say, for example, the dimensional theory is correct, if there's one more dimension, there's probably two. If there's two, there's four. You know what I mean? So they very well come from a different place than everything else does. And that's very possible too. Maybe we're talking about us being in the center of something else. Perhaps there's multiple soft points in our reality where different things are coming through. And what we're seeing is maybe not necessarily what it actually is. And perhaps demons are simply just a whole different, you know, their own category. That's very possible. I don't disagree with you on that.
Well, demons themselves have, you know, they were never human. Number one, and they were fallen angels. If you look in the biblical theological text, you know, when Lucifer tried to sit on God's throne, he not only convinced that he could do what God does, but he convinced a third of God's angels. So demons are fallen angels. So they have been there forever. You know, they haven't died and come back as something. They've always been, and they always have the same mention, and that is to always go against everything that God stands for, including God's people. Didn't mean to get into a tangent there. So yeah, I'm very methodical with my thinking when it comes to spiritual warfare and things like that. And I just wanted to ask you your thoughts on demons, because you were saying relative. Now with the other ones, Brian, like how do you compare supernatural, like say paranormal, to let's say UFOs? So I've heard this before. I've heard that some people say that unidentified flying objects, aliens and things of that nature, could possibly be demons. I mean, have you ever heard that before?
I've heard that occasionally. I don't know that I would think that they're demons.
Yeah, I don't think so. I'm very skeptical about that.
The main reason being is, from what I understand about demons in possession, and I certainly haven't read as much as you have, or certainly don't have any experience like you have, but my understanding is they're not afraid to show that they're evil and
No,
that
no.
they want to hurt you. And UFOs don't seem to want to be necessarily noticed. Abductees often lose memories. That's one of the common denominators when someone reports being abducted by a UFO. And from what I understand about demons, they very much want everyone in the room to know that they're a demon, and that if they could, they'd kill every one of them. And that's what we believe are potentially aliens don't behave like that. People who have been abducted are more than likely brought back unharmed, sometimes even changed for the better, depending on the scenario. So for them to be demons, I don't see it. Anything's possible. I just don't think that they are acting in the same way that we believe and have seen how demons act.
I got you. I got you. Now, how about those three gentlemen, those good old country boys or whatever, that they were in their car or whatever, and the bright light came right in front of their car. It's a famous story, and it was so bright, and there was three of them, and then one of them wasn't there anymore, and he supposedly disappeared, was off everything for like 2 or 3 weeks, and then he came back and he explained his experience. And even to this day, when he speaks on it, it's so traumatizing to him because of what happened, that when he even starts to talk about it, his emotions get the best of him, and he really had a horrible time with it.
I think to anybody, for example, when my friend and I saw a Sasquatch, it scared the hell out of us. I suspect if I saw an alien, which, don't get me wrong, I would love to be abducted and have that experience. May sound crazy, but I investigate this stuff.
You would love to be abducted?
Oh, absolutely. Love it. But at the same time, if I woke up on, a lot of times they describe that you can't move, you wake up and you're on some kind of table, and there's aliens. I'm not gonna lie, I hope I went to the bathroom before they abducted me. Otherwise,
I was about to say, Brian, they prod you.
No, because that's good. Even understanding, if I saw, for example, a Roswell Gray, one of the most common ones that we hear that take people, I would look at that and it would register as what it is, in my belief in what it is, what I've been told, read about. It's one of the aliens that supposedly was found at Roswell. We see him pretty much, when you think of an alien, that's what you think of most of the time. Little gray guy, big black eyes. So if I saw that, even though I would register that's what I'm seeing, the fact that it's actually happening, I don't see how your fight or flight instincts couldn't kick in. I can't see how it couldn't be traumatic in some degree. But especially if you are a non-believer, you're not a researcher, you've never heard accounts, you have no predisposition, you're just like, this is all crap, I don't believe any of it, I don't even know what they look like because it doesn't matter, they're not real. And then you have this experience, and I mean, everything you believed in is all of a sudden shattered. I could certainly see how that could be traumatic. Whether that was their intention, I very much doubt it, but I could certainly see how that could be a result psychologically.
Yeah, that man, and just to think that, and I mean, there's got to be something, man, with all these hundreds and thousands of people that have had experiences. That's why, I tell people I'm not a paranormal clergy. I'm a clergy that works in the paranormal. So there is a difference there. And so, I mean, when people have real paranormal experiences, or they have real cryptid experiences or real alien experiences, I don't think we should just be looking over these people like we think they're crazy. I think we really need to listen to them, because my belief is perception is reality. You know, what they perceive is their reality, and you're not going to change that, no matter how crazy you think they sound, no matter how crazy you think they are. Perception is reality. And if they perceive that that is their reality and it happened to them, we really need to start paying closer attention to that, because there's a reason why they truly believe that. And
I agree.
yeah, not definitely.
It's a little over an hour, so we need to wrap it up in the next couple of minutes. Okay.
All right. That's fine. Yeah, Brian, I can go on and talk about this for hours with you, man. And honestly, on your final thoughts behind this, I just got one other thing. On your final thoughts, you know, when you started Cryptid Paranormal and things like that, did you start this group or this team, or are you a team, or are you just a group?
I'm a one-man show.
You're a one-man show. All right. So, I mean, were you just wanting to kind of explore everything with the paranormal to cryptid to UFOs to all kind of things like that? You were just kind of like a whole span of all those things?
Yes. Over the years, all the research I've done and my own experiences have kind of led me to the conclusion that it's very possible it's all connected. Going to different conferences, events, shows, speakers, all over the place, other people who have been in it, 10, 20 years, like I have come to the same conclusion independently of me. So if it is all connected, the only way to get the answer is to look at all the possibilities and see if the puzzle pieces really fit or not.
Exactly. How about this? I'd like to have you back for a round 2. And I'd like to have you back. Do you have any kind of like active stories or paperwork or anything like that of experiences that people have had that maybe we can break into it and dissect, what they say and do? Because I'd really like to hear some more of this.
Yeah, I can reach out and get a few. I have an unexplained encounters page on my website where a few people have sent some stuff to me as things that they've encountered that
Awesome.
They can't explain. And I don't edit those. Whatever comes in, I post it as is.
There you go.
That's all. So,
well, Brian, I want
judgment on it.
I want people to be able to get a hold of you. So can you tell everybody how to get a hold of you? I want them to be able to go to your page. I want them to be able to reach out to you, because I'm sure all these people that are watching, they're going to have loads of questions. I know people are going to reach out to you from this, but how can we get a hold of you?
You can go to cryptidparanormal.com. We're on Facebook, Cryptid Paranormal Facebook page. Feel free to follow, like us there, send me a message there, reach out through cryptidparanormal.com, send me an email, shoot me a message on Facebook, whatever's easier. And I try to get back to everybody who messaged me. So if you send a message, I will get back to you. It may not be the next day, but it'll be within usually a couple days. I try to get back to everybody.
And if you guys can't get a hold of them, I can get a hold of them. So reach out to me too. You guys know Outer Realms Paranormal. You guys, I'm going to get him to start sharing his stuff on our page. So, I mean, you feel free to reach out to him. Brian, I want to thank you for coming on, man. You've been an awesome guest. I'd like to have you back for round 2. So if you're game for it, I've got a million more questions for you, and I'm sure you got a million more answers for me. But I definitely thank you for coming on, man. You've been an awesome guest, and I look forward to having you back, brother.
Thank you. I look forward to coming back, and thank you guys for having me. It's been great.
All right, brother. You take care, okay?
Thank
you. All right. Hey, guys. See, that is an awesome show, and I love having shows like that where we can just kind of break down and be free to answer questions and stuff like that. And I appreciate each and every one of you for tuning in. And it is interesting, the things that he was saying about cryptids and stuff like that. I do believe that there are things like that out there. And I do believe that we should explore that and find out. So guys, tune in next week too, because I have a very interesting guest. I have a guest that was actually one of my clients. and it is a success story behind this client. And she wants to come on and share with you all on how things changed in her life after we worked together. So you guys stay tuned next week, and it's going to be a nice banger one, and you guys are going to really appreciate it. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. It's always good to see you all. You guys stay safe, be blessed always, and stay spooky, people. Peace.